Good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing pretty well. Yeah.
Good. Good to see you.
Good
Hi,
morning,
Mary.
Mary.
Hi, Jason. And Jill and Robin.
I feel like it's Mr. Rogers' show, right? Good morning, boys and girls.
You got to take off your shoes, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Take off
Change
your
into my
shoes.
slippers.
Yeah, feed the fish.
And unzip your sweater vest.
Oh yeah,
Get
right.
comfortable.
I got my flannel.
It's a very set regimen.
Oh my God. That Tom Hanks movie was really well done on Mr. Rogers. It was a clever
that one.
You know, instead of just like doing like a documentary, it was kind of focused on kind of like life outside the studio, so to speak. You know, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we're just having people coming in. Hopefully a few more will join. I'm really so thrilled that Robin Bellows was able to come. I emailed Robin just kind of as a follow-up to our last meeting saying, hey, you know, I heard members were really interested in the forest health grant and wanted to learn more. And I emailed Robin to say, would you be available to talk with us sometime? And they're here. So
nice.
I feel
Thank
really,
you, Robin.
I feel very honored that we got some of your time. And maybe we should even I'm thinking maybe we should put Robin at the front of the agenda just so that we don't take too much of their time. But maybe we'll go through our like round robin introductions and give people time to like start to think about their questions so that they feel a little bit more ready when we actually do get to that. I think that probably sounds
That's
good.
a great idea. I think that's a really good idea. Good.
Oh, and Kim, you're facilitating. So
I am facilitating, but if you want to keep going, that's cool.
No, you take it over.
So
would you like me to put up an agenda or anything?
Yeah. We might have a few numbers less today because of the prescribed burn that's going on at Redwoods out in the north part of the county. I know we have a lot of fire people that typically attend and people who are interested in prescribed burns. And the folks at Rips Redwoods were very nice enough to invite a lot of people. So that might dwindle our numbers a bit. So I think we should go ahead and get going on our agenda. I like your idea that we go through round robin, and then we can ask Robin to share a little bit about the forest health grants. That would be super. So with that, let's do a quick round robin. People can give a sense of what they're working on right now, and also consider how the forest working group might be able to assist in anything that you're doing, whether it be outreach, trainings, things that you want to get onto our calendar, on our website. All those things are really valuable for us to be able to include. So with that, I think I'll just go around with Jason Wells. Would you start, followed by Mary?
Sure. Well, I'm trying to just take advantage of a small lull in between grants that were getting submitted and that sort of thing, and should be hearing about county grants at the end of the week. So who knows? But yeah, just trying to write management plans and get out ahead of some of the things that I've had going on for a long time. So nothing crazy to bring up right now.
Good, that's great. Thanks, Jason. I don't believe I know who you are with a lull in your work schedule. So you should be careful what you say on these public meetings, because now everybody's going to start bombarding you with phone calls. So
oh no, I mean, like those are coming.
Yeah, right.
just telling people no, or trying to. Like sometimes that doesn't even work.
Yeah, right. I appreciate the work you do.
Yeah, that wasn't supposed to be construed as I'm not busy. It's just like getting to the things that have been on my plate for 18 months.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm working on.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Mary, would you like to share what you're up to?
Sure. I am not working on any super forest related things at the moment. I'm just still here to learn, and just interested to see if there's any discussion of the ag community workshop. But yeah, glad to be here.
That's great. You know, it's always helpful since we have this kind of a flow of people who join in, haven't been able to attend a couple of weeks or months. Please let us know who you are and what your organization affiliation is, if you would.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kim.
No worries.
I'm the agricultural specialist at Sonoma County Ag and Open Space. Hence the interest in the ag workshop. So.
That sounds good. Good. And I thought Mary would be a really good contributor to our hopeful linkage to vineyard producers and other ag components who have a forestry component to it, or a forest that they're managing. So we hope to have that workshop sometime soon this spring, maybe, or actually I should leave that to Adriana to let us know about where it lies in our calendar. But we're hopeful to plan that out, and Mary, you'll be a great contribution to that. So,
yeah, I think maybe more like summer at this point, since things have been getting pushed back a bit. But Mary, it would be great to keep you in the loop, and maybe in the future I can let you know when we have that item on the agenda specifically, so we use your time well.
I'd be thrilled to show up for that and looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. And Shanti, can you share us what you're up to these days?
Hey everybody, I'm Shanti Edwards with Sonoma Land Trust, and I'm a stewardship project manager focusing on care of our lands on the Sonoma coast. And so currently we're working on a CalVTP with Ascent Environmental, and we finished up the treatment descriptions and worked on the map of the treatment area that is kind of a mix of fuel breaks and what we call ecological restoration, which is kind of a catch-all for all the other activities we might do within kind of the footprint of where this document covers. And so, as y'all know, this is a CEQA level document, and the measuring and the monitoring and mitigation plan is really what we're focusing on right now. And it's pretty illuminating in terms of all the ways that we need to kind of focus our work outside of wildlife use windows, which we typically do, but now we have just an extra eyes open on kind of the variety of measures, like from erosion control and emissions, vehicle emissions from crews, and all the wildlife species and special status plants. And so just really looking at the budget impacts of how we might implement the VTP and how the cost might actually, really rival that of the implementation. So, I am interested in the Cal VTP kind of support group that folks have chatted about, and even looking regionally about kind of like the forest conditions on the coast and how the language that we're developing, once it's really finalized, we could absolutely share with other groups, because we are part of that Sonoma Coast Collaborative group that Judy Rosales and Marshall Turbeville and others are convening to really look at how we're uniting our vision and our plan for really linking up our projects for community safety and forest health. So that's kind of the main thing I'm working on. Also, our organization is in the middle of kind of planning for our next fiscal year and thinking about how we're going to kind of take on the next phase of forest management work, where we need to expand on existing shaded field break projects and think about the next steps. But I'm not really reporting out on our other regions. I want to just acknowledge that the Land Trust works regionally, and we have a huge area of focus in the Sonoma Valley, where we are a partner in the Sonoma Valley Wildlands Collaborative. And that's definitely a group to watch in terms of all the agencies and landowners in the Glen Ellen area teaming up to look at forest health across kind of a larger landscape. I think 18,000 acres is the number. And then in the Knights Valley, my counterpart, Melina Hammer, is working quite a bit on forest health treatments on a number of our preserves over there. So lots going on at the Land Trust, and I love seeing you all. And I have to hop off at 10:30, so I'm happy to see you while I can. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Shanti. The CalVTP is a tool that I think we're going to see more and more action on. Robert Guerrero gave a nice presentation on CEQA, and that's one of the tools that can be used as a broad-based tool. So I think we as a working group can certainly support that and trying to get lessons learned, try to strengthen that tool and its application in lots of different scenarios throughout the county. So I look forward to working with you on that. Dee Swanhauser, can you report out, please?
Hi.
Hey, good morning.
I'm Dee Swanheiser, and I'm representing Taking Action for Living Systems, which is an outcropping from the Forest Working Group a few years ago. And currently we are working with the people that the county hired at UC Berkeley, the CLE group, to figure out some next steps that go beyond what the county has been able to do with the CLE recommendations in their report of last year. And we are really concentrating on two things that we don't see being addressed by any group or elected body, and that is to find a governance structure for wild fires and forest health that is large enough to help everybody that's already working to do their best, but the scale and pace is still way slow if we think of the timetable that we are working with the climate emergencies. And the other thing we're working on besides a governance structure is with CLE is to look at the costs involved in a comprehensive vegetation management program. And we know that it's well beyond the ability of public financing. However, combining private and public cost-saving benefits and enterprise opportunities and ecosystem benefits, if directed and leveraged correctly, can match these costs. So we're very hopeful, and we are now working with CLE over the next couple of months on a convening of some type to get the leadership and the various risk sectors of the county engaged in finding solutions to the financing and to the governance. So that's what TALS is up to. And I just look forward to telling you more about it and engaging you all as time goes on.
Great, thank you, Dee. Appreciate that. And next on the list is Jill Butler. Could you share with us what you're doing these days?
Good morning. This
Good morning,
is Jill. I represent Gualala River Watershed Council to the Forest Group. And let's see, we're gearing up for occupying more of Jason's time, I think in the near future on the Gualala River Watershed Collaborative Project. One of the partners Jason has identified for that collaborative is the Forest Group. So I also want to, with everyone's permission, I will plan to represent the Forest Group to the collaborative once those meetings get underway. And let's see, surveys, which are fisheries and stream habitat type of surveys are wrapped up for this year. And when we get into the funding discussion, we're trying to figure out funding to do spawning and snorkeling surveys. So that's a funding need. Anybody who's working in the fisheries arena. And that's about it for us.
Okay, thanks, Jill. I appreciate that. Let me see, I have Mason on my screen, Mason Indumara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mason, a Grizzly Corps fellow with Fire Safe Sonoma and Goldridge RCD. Yeah, I guess I'm going to talk a little about what Fire Safe Sonoma's got going on. We have a Fire Alliance meeting later today. Our main guest is Carolyn Safford, Permit Sonoma. She'll be talking about wildfire adapted Sonoma County. So I'm interested in hearing more about that. And if you are as well, make sure to come to our meeting today. Also, we are looking for, Fire Safe Sonoma is also looking for an executive coordinator. So we're currently taking applications and vetting people for that. And I believe that Adriana added that somewhere on the email list serve. So thank you for that. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here today and for the presentations that we have today.
Great, thanks a lot, Mason. Thanks for joining us. Nico from Shelterwood Collective.
Hi, good morning, folks. Apologies in advance. I'm on satellite Wi-Fi, so sometimes the connection can be a little bit tricky, and so I'll be staying off video just to improve ease of transmission. But good morning. I'm Nico Alexandre. I'm the stewardship lead for Shelterwood Collective. We're a small Black and Indigenous-led conservation nonprofit working out of West County. We took over the recently named Camp Cazadero in June, and we're in the process of restoring the infrastructure and more specifically restoring the forest for fire resiliency and habitat restoration. And you might be hearing the saws working in the background. We're in full swing right now. So really excited to be a part of this community and learn about all that y'all have going on. We're in the process of pulling together a forest health grant for Cal Fire. The forest it's a 900-acre forest, and we're looking to treat about 800 of those acres through a variety of techniques: shaded fuel breaks, controlled burns, understory thinnings. And our hope is to demonstrate a holistic approach to forest restoration and fire resiliency that really centers local communities and community empowerment. So I'll just stop there, and we're looking forward to connecting with all of you throughout the weeks and months and hopefully years.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for joining us today, Nico. We really look forward to learning more about your project. That'd be great. Let me see. I got, looks like Ray Kraus, please. Could you let us know what's going on, Ray?
Hi. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've sat in with this group, and I wanted to poke in and see what's happening. I'm with Friends of Mark West Watershed and the Upper Mark West Fire Safe Council. We're doing, I personally am doing a lot of brush cutting and pile burning of dead and burnt vegetation from the glass fire. Neighbors are as well. There've been several hundred acres of mechanical work done and pile burning done over the winter, which is really quite impressive. We're working with TALS and D. We thank you very much on a couple of grants for shaded fuel breaks on the ridges. A lot of that work is being done in advance of any grant money, just as a result of the pile burning that's going on up there already. There's a lot of interest. You know, I think I guess the interesting thing in my mind is that in this TALS work, we're kind of developing a concept of what are called pods, and I'll let Dee explain it in more detail, but we're looking at creating bounded areas protected by shaded fuel breaks that can serve as boundaries for prescriptive burns, access for fire suppression, and continuing access for ongoing forest management. And it seems to make a lot of sense to create kind of a jigsaw puzzle of units, management units that can be priced and managed and bid separately. And I think one of the things that we're really interested in and perhaps working with the Open Space District on is developing some studies on post-fire management follow-up. What are the steps 4 years out and 5 years out and 10 years out? I don't think we've begun to come to grasp with those. All you got to do is drive through the Tubbs fire footprint or drive Trinity Road if you're really a masochist. And look at the post-fire consequences. So
yeah,
we really need to come up, do we put in goats after 4 years of regrowth, or do we go in and hand cut and select for tall stems, or do we reburn, and how soon do we reburn, and how often do we reburn? All of those are uncertainties that I'm hoping that somehow through this group we can come up with a scheme for illuminating those questions.
Right, those are great questions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for carrying on, and I guess TALS has a couple of tours. One at Dee, do you know what those dates are? For anyway, the notices will be going out. The tours for areas where mechanical work has already been done and pile burning has been done, and to help expand the realm of experience and other people that are interested in getting involved. But thank you.
All right, great. Thanks very much, Ray, for coming back. For those who don't know Ray, he's been one of our original members of the Forest Working Group, and represents the Mark West area. So friends of the Mark West. So thank you, Ray. It's nice to see you again. Let me see. So Ivan O'Neill, do you mind sharing with us what you're up to?
Thanks, Kim. Hello, everyone. Great to be here again, and grateful to share time and learn with you all today. My company, Madronas Wildfire Defense, has gotten off to a really busy start to the year, as I'm sure it has been for many of you. One interesting and particularly challenging project we have right now is a 17-acre parcel near the Russian River that has about 40% slopes on 3/4 of the parcel, and a lot of bay laurel that needs addressing. Historically, it was a Doug fir dominant forest cover, but has shifted with clear cutting over the years. And we're trying to figure out what to do about it. And also how we might be able to contour the land better and hold back water rather than letting it sheet down the slopes. So if anybody has any thoughts on that or wants to chat, I'm all ears.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. Judy Rosales, do you want to share with us what you're up to?
Good morning. Hey, Nico, it's nice to see you. We've been in conversation, but I haven't met him yet. We've been discussing a project on Moorheart Ridge, him attacking it from Cazadero, us attacking it from this end over at Seaview Ranch and over. So that's something that we've been in discussion about. I've also been in discussion with David Katz about doing a future forest health grant from Rip's Redwoods all the way down to our communities down here, Jenner, Cazadero. So that's a pretty big project that we're excited about and really interested in exploring with him and also with Nico about including his project as well. But we just submitted a fire prevention grant to CAL FIRE for our ranch roads, phase 2, Fort Ross Road being phase 1, and we're getting started on that. Matt's submitting our NOE right now, and we're moving forward on that. We have 2 chipper days scheduled. Kim, I'll send you those dates, one this month and one in early March, so you can choose which one will work for you. Right now, our local working group, the TLC, they've put in, I think I just saw on one of the websites here, our group websites, I mean, almost 700 hours already this spring. Volunteer work days every Saturday, every Sunday on the Waller Ranch and on the Seaview Ranch. So they're going, we're hoping to take the chipper out at the end of the month to the Seaview Day, and then one again up here. So another couple of things that we have going, we had a prescribed burn with Sasha Berlman a few weeks ago when we had the heavy winds, and we had to postpone that, but we're going to be talking to her also about partnering on one of these grants, whether, I think we talked about the forest health grant. So we'll be going forward with that. Let's see, the chipper, the work days. We have been meeting with Marshall since last summer. At our last meeting, Marshall suggested that we meet monthly. Our groups, we've had Shanti there, Brooke, all the way up to North Sonoma Coast Fire and all the groups in between, Jenner, all the way up to the Mendocino border. So we've been meeting, and Marshall suggested that we meet once a month to keep bringing our projects together, working on how we're going to collaborate so that when these funding opportunities, become available, we have our projects already formed and mapped and, discussed, and how we're going to reach out and take advantage of some of the funding opportunities. So that's pretty exciting. The other thing that we just looked at, and I was talking to Matt Green about, is this CAL FIRE block grant that was just announced, and how we might approach that for the North Sonoma Coast, and what kind of partnerships we would need to bring in for that, and how we would form some kind of a working group to see how we might be able to make that work out here. So we've been pretty busy, and I just took 5 days off, and now I'm jumping back into it with this meeting. So that's where we are now. That's
Judy, can
yes.
I ask you what the block grant, a short description of that?
Well, CAL FIRE is, they just announced it. I read it while I was away. And to my understanding, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, is that an organization would apply for this grant as a means for helping landowners on their properties, bringing in resources to help make their properties more fire resilient. And but it would be administered by the lead organization that puts in that grant. If anyone else can explain it better than that, please do.
Well, matter of fact, that's a perfect transition to our invited guest, Robin Bellows. I think she will be able to provide great explanation about what the forest block is for.
Oh, yay, Robin, great.
So, thank you, Robin, for joining us. Would you mind introducing yourself and then giving us a sense of what your focus is at CAL FIRE?
Yeah, hi, that was a perfect timing. I'm Robin. I'm the Forest Health Program Forester for, they call me Central California, which means more or less Marin to Mendocino to Modoc to Mariposa counties. So there's 3 of us for the whole state, and I've got Napa County. My job is to do grant management for forest health grants in all those counties. So right now we have the solicitation that a bunch of you are already talking about. So I'm here to answer questions and help everyone put in good applications. Then once grants are awarded, I am involved in processing invoices, making sure grants are on track, and providing general technical support for those. So I am super excited to hear about all the projects. You will have some really interesting stuff going on. I imagine you all have questions, so I can see the chat. If there's specific things that you all want to talk about, feel free to stick them in the chat, or pop your head up and so there's kind of 2 ways we can go here. I could do a presentation, but I think you all have questions. So
I can facilitate any questions. Yeah. And Dee it looks like she has her hand up. Maybe that's a residual hand. You're still muted, Dee. All right, looks like her hand was errantly up. So we'll keep moving on. So I want to open up the panel to any discussions. If there's any kind of presentation you want to share, that'd be great. We really do have some flexibility in our schedule. So so Robin, if you want to share somewhat of a presentation about what are kind of the goals. I know there's a lot of questions about some of the ways to kind of nurture along a grant with CAL FIRE, and how to best engage with the folks that are working in that particular area. So yeah. I have some other suggestions.
Okay, I will. Let's see, it looks like I don't have participant screen sharing. I have a couple slides that I can share.
Oh, I just turned it on for you.
Thanks. Here is a link. Oops, to someone else might have just sent it. The program that was just mentioned, the block grant. So I'm just going to put that link in the chat because I don't have it in my presentation. So screen share. Okay, do you see a PowerPoint?
There you go. Yes, we do.
Okay, so I work for a CAL FIRE Forest Health program. So I specialize in forest health grants, but I can also do some Q&A about all CAL FIRE's grant programs. One of the biggest things I think is making sure that the grant opportunities and projects match, because projects get funded when it's a good fit between the project and the funding guidelines. So I'm happy to answer questions about that as well. And now the chat has disappeared. Where did you go? Okay, so Forest Health Program is a brief overview. Applications are due March 4th. The goals are forest and fire restoration, carbon benefits, and watershed protection. We have a very broad range of activities that can be included, from fuels reduction, prescribed fire, biomass utilization, reforestation, etc. They tend to be large in size, so above 800 acres and up to $5 million. And the funding expiration date that we have from the legislature is March 2026. So there's a few years to complete the work. There's a few things that have changed that are new this year. One is that business and workforce developments have their own grants program. So projects that focus on training, capacity building, plant nurseries, and infrastructure like bioenergy facilities all have, that's a separate grant program now that specializes in that. Same for research and conservation easements. For anyone who's applied in the past, there's a couple new things this year. One is that up to 10% of the project can go, of the grant can go towards planning next year. So that's like outreach or environmental documents or anything that's like not for the implementation, but for future projects. There's also slightly updated online application spreadsheet and shape files. So if you've applied before and you're submitting similar materials, please do make sure you update to the current format. Any questions so far? I don't see any.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder why the deadline is so darn soon if we're just hearing about it.
The deadline is soon because the goal is to have grants awarded and funds contracted in order to let people get working in the summer. So the goal is to have it this field season.
So is it going to be the normal huge, process of applying with all the details, that we do for all the other grants?
Yeah, it's going to be basically the same as Forest Health grants last year, which is they're all slightly different, but there's no big changes to the process.
And just to be clear,
can this continue? This grant opportunity will be available another time besides this deadline of March 4th?
Yeah, so currently we have a solicitation open March 4th. When exactly the next time it's open depends on when the legislature appropriates the funding. Okay. But we think it'll be next fall, depending on when the funding comes.
Thanks.
Just to be clear, we're talking about the forest health grants right now, not talking about the wildfire resilience block grants, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so this was expected, this was anticipated, yeah. This was going to be around. This is not the wildfire resilience block grants, which is a new program, which is due April 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, and they were advertising it pretty hard, and as of December, I think the announcement went out for this grant, the Forest Health Grant. These are a little bit onerous, and if I can speak from experience, and just one of the keys that we heard from other applicants, it's really key to be coordinating with local representatives of CAL FIRE to make sure your project is on their radar. So, and collaboration and getting their support has really been helpful for those who have been successful in getting a HELP grant.
Yeah. We're also encouraging everyone who's applying to set up a call with someone from my team. So I'm here. If that's you, then please send me an email. So that we can do a half-hour eligibility consultation and talk about your project, because we know the application is onerous and is a lot of work. So we want to talk to you early and we'll make sure that it's actually a fit and that the project is eligible before everyone does all that work.
Put your email address on the chat, please.
Yeah, do that right now. So our team has been really busy. So if you've contacted me and I haven't responded, contact me again, because we've been getting a lot of calls and I've been in the field the last few days. So if you've contacted me and I didn't respond, I'm sorry, please ping me again. Okay, so these are kind of general tips for success. One is start early because we know the application is a lot. Two, and this is really the big one, is make sure that your project is going to the right grant. So forest health grants, the ones I do, are for boots on the ground, dozers on the ground, well, usually not dozers, masticators on the ground, drip torches in hand doing the work. The new one, the block grant, is for landowner assistance to small non-industrial landowners. So if you do a lot of work in the community, outreach to other people, then that's what that new grant is about. And it's really exciting that there's funding for that, because forest health is so big that there's a lot of folks who really want to do something, but the program is too big. If your organization works with folks that are not working with thousands of acres, then that new block grant is for you.
So just so people are aware, the North Bay Forest Improvement Program is a landowner cost share incentive program that's being run by After the Fire, formerly Rebuild North Bay Foundation, along with the resource conservation districts in Sonoma, Napa, Lake, and Mendocino counties. That is funded by a block grant. So we've been awarded one of these grants for Sonoma County to do thinning, planting, pruning, technical assistance, so plan writing, that kind of stuff. So we have something for this grant right now. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about applying specifically for the block grant, that we have one.
Thanks, Jason. That's great information. We talk a lot about partnerships. That's largely because our grants are so big that they're kind of too much for most organizations to do on their own. Whoops, got my screen share all scrambled here. So we're happy to see grants that come from more partnerships. Pick your partners well. And the biggest challenge that I see in application scoring is that when the scorers can't tell what you're trying to do, then it doesn't get high points. So clarity about what exactly you want to do, where and why, is kind of the challenge for many applications. Okay, so this is a cartoon that I've made to help people tell the difference between forest health grants and fire prevention grants. Fire prevention grants closed last week. A bunch of you, I think, heard that you submitted them, which is awesome. So in this cartoon map, the gray areas are like towns or where people live, and that would generally be a fit for an urban or community forestry grant. Then the brown areas that are like kind of surrounding town centers are WUI and like wild and urban interface or intermix. So there's some trees, there's some shrubs, there's some houses, and that is typically where fire prevention grants go. So that's direct protection of people and communities. Or infrastructure. So often if there's a fuel break right along the road, that's fire prevention because it's protecting the road and protecting the people on the road. Then forest health is in the wildlands in between where the people are. And I wish we could treat the whole landscape because the whole landscape deserves restoration, but we don't have that much funding. So it's strategically located project areas within that. Some like key resource or some species or some historical site, or it has benefit to the whole watershed. Kind of that's up to local folks like you to say, it's important to do this treatment here. This place is special. Here's what we want to do. Then there's business and workforce development, which could kind of be anywhere. And that's training, job training, infrastructure, and so on. So if you describe your project and you find yourself using the buzzwords under forest health, it's probably a forest health project. If you describe your project and you find yourself using the buzzwords under fire prevention, it's probably a fire prevention project. So clearly these are two funding streams that go together. We're sister programs, but we have these two different funding mandates. And so I know this is really confusing. So this is my attempt to unscramble that.
Robin, I just want to say this is so helpful. I feel like this just really helps clarify what the different pots are really for. So thanks for making this cartoon. I love it.
You're welcome. And also, these are like, if you want to know what buzzwords reviewers are scoring for, like, hint, hint, these are the ones that I've seen reviewers say like, oh, it says fuel break, therefore it should be fire prevention. I can't say that's definitely in the scoring criteria, but like, these are the ones that I've seen come up over again.
Yeah, I just want to double down on Adriana's comment that I think this is a really helpful graphic for people. And I've noticed people very often confuse or conflate these two programs. So honestly, I would even recommend that you see if you can get this put on the website, something like this.
Yeah.
I think this would be really helpful for people. So
cool. That's good to hear. Our comm shop wants to make it prettier before they post it on the website, but feel free to screenshot and send it to people. This is public.
Does this include the block grant information, or is it separate and should be added?
Block grants need to be added. Yeah. So this is, so let's see, if I were to put block grants into this, oh man, I don't know how they would go into this cartoon, but I have another cartoon that they might fit into. So this is another one. This slide that I'm showing you is about a month out of date. So it doesn't have the block grants on it. So I need to update this. This is a list of all the funding sources that I know of, minus the block grants, because I need to add it to it. So for things that include collaboration, funding groups like this, or planning, or environmental documents, or education, that could be funded by fire prevention or by the Regional Forest and Fuels capacity building. For landowner assistance, that could be funded by CFIP, which is CAL FIRE, or EQIP, which is federal, and that's cost share assistance for making forest management plans, et cetera. The block grants are kind of in this area too, because it would, like the block grants would go to an organization that would then do the outreach to forest owners, forest managers.
And that is what we're doing. We have that.
Yeah. And that's also, if there's other organizations that want to start doing that as well and be like the North Bay Forest Partnership, then that's what the block grant's for. Implementation, so like going out to plant trees or put fire on the ground, that would be forest health or fire prevention. Business and workforce development is another new grants program. They have quarterly applications. So their first deadline is at the end of March, and they expect to have a quarterly fund awarded until they run out of money. So it's totally possible that will be all spent in the first quarter, and it's also possible that it will take longer. So
hey,
that
Robin,
yeah.
Can I interrupt? Judy has a question. Do you want to address that now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, Robin, I had a meeting with you a couple of weeks ago, and if I remember correctly, I think you said that another difference between forest health and fire prevention was that you couldn't include evacuation routes in forest health.
Yeah, so evacuation routes are a big focus for fire prevention. And in forest health, they're not allowed, but they're not generally the focus.
So you can do the clearing, the limbing, and all of that, but just not call it evacuation.
Yeah.
Include it in your general forest health treatment.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the cartoon here. So these two fire prevention kind of blobs along the road, that would be typical fire prevention evacuation route, to like widen the evacuation route, reduce fuels along the evacuation route. If you wanted to submit this to forest health, you could, especially if there's another project next to it. So say you have some teams, some crews in the area doing forest restoration, and you say, and we also want to do the evacuation route, then yes, absolutely. Or you could, for the same project, you could say, hey, we want to protect the people from the forest coming in from the fire coming in from the forest, and submit it to fire prevention. Or you could say, hey, we want to protect the forest from fire starts along the road, and submit it to forest health. So yes, that's a very odd, like these two things overlap, but we have these two different funding mandates. And every year there's projects that we know are good projects, but they don't match the funding criteria. So yes, I know that's confusing, and I know it's confusing, but that's what we're working with.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so back to business and workforce development. They're open right now. They're in another one of the CAL FIRE grants programs. If anyone is interested in that, send me an email. I can put you in touch with John or Justin, who run that. So that includes training programs. There's a lot of community colleges that are kind of eligible to get funding to start classes related to really anything involved in forest management. So that could be like forestry classes, it could be heavy equipment operator classes, it could be project management classes because we need more people to organize these things and so on. Could be organizational capacity building, which is really a catch-all for anything business related that builds local capacity. It could go to infrastructure, like putting in bioenergy like machines in order to have local wood, support local wood markets. And also it can go to nurseries because there's a kind of a statewide shortage of seeds to replant after fires. So that's a big, I think it's really exciting that there's some people focusing specifically on that. Couple more opportunities.
Robin, can I ask you a question? And Jason also has a question.
Yeah.
My question is related to business and workforce. Is there a budget that's allotted for this year for that particular grant?
Yes, there is. I don't know it offhand. It's on their website. Think that it's about 30 million for workforce in general, and about 4 million of that is for nurseries. Okay. If you go to grants and then, can you see my internet screen here?
No, you'd have to switch out, but don't worry about it. We can follow up afterwards.
Okay, I'll stick a link into the chat.
That sounds great. I visited that website. I just wondered if you knew the number offhand. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Jason Wells had a question for you.
All right. So going back to the matrix of confusion. So my question really has to do with the planning phase before we can be putting together forest health grants. I'm a forester, so I'm more interested in forest health than other things. But oftentimes when we're talking about forest health projects, as you know, a lot of what we'd be talking about are like ridgetop shaded fuel breaks that are going to enable us to be doing things like prescribed fire or larger landscape context planning.
Yes.
But in order to do that, we need these 800-acre parcels. We've got all these different people that we generally don't have 800-acre property owners in Sonoma County. So there's this phase at which we need to do community outreach, creating a cohesive group of people. Then we need to do a planning stage where we actually identify where are not only our roads, which easily fits into the fire prevention grant, but like where are ridge tops and where are we actually like operationally feasible to do stuff. And so just wondering, because you've got the planning, CEQA, NEPA, and all that kind of stuff specifically under fire prevention.
Yes.
I just wonder, like, is there an opportunity under the forest health to explain that sort of need when you're looking at a very rural sort of area where you are probably not going to score very high in terms of the structures saved, individual communities, you know, protected, but we need to do this planning phase so that we can get to the larger scale that affects the ember cast, that affects, you know, not only these communities, but also affects like people, like, like where does that fit in?
That's a great question. And it's sort of a gap statewide, not just in Sonoma County, that there's a little bit of a catch-22 where in order to get funding, you have to be ready to implement, but in order to get ready to implement, you need to do big outreach and planning. So I have a couple, I don't know, pointers for that. One is that fire prevention includes planning as one of the explicit goals and things that they fund. So if you can get fire prevention funds for that, that would be in their next round, which is probably in the fall. Then grab that. Another is the RFFCP program, the Regional Forest and Fuels. Are you familiar with that? I'm not sure.
Yes. Our RFFC group is under a block grant, which is for the North Coast Resource Partnership. So that's our RFFC group. So that includes everything from the Russian River north, and then we would have a different one for Marin, and we would have a different one for even like Sonoma Valley wouldn't be. Yeah. So we're kind of in a weird position that our RFFC breaks our county up into odd groups.
Yeah, and you're not alone. There's lots of places in the state where the different regions bump up together, and people right there think this is odd. Mm-hmm. So for forest health in particular, and for rural areas in particular, because part of what you said is that it's hard to get that funding when it's rural and there's not a bunch of houses and structures threatened. Anyone who's writing a forest health grant right now, I definitely encourage you to put in up to 10% of your plant towards the grant towards planning future work, because it takes someone's time and someone's effort to make the phone calls and set up the websites and like basically kind of community organizing to bring everyone together. So for current forest health grants, up to 10% of the grant can go towards basically planning the future and something that's not tied to specific acres. So yes, that might mean decreasing your, like, there's a balance between we want to get as much money as we can for current acres, but we know that there's a gap here, and that's why we're saying for current applications, up to 10% can go towards that.
And one of the programs also that's not listed here, but is noteworthy, is the vegetation management program through CAL FIRE. And so like, if we can be tying in these sorts of areas and then be doing, say you're working with your RCD or another local government agency to implement a VTP, once we have a VTP document, it's very simple for CAL FIRE to be able to come in and utilize their equipment, crews, oversight to be able to do prescribed fire. So, yeah, you know, I just wanted to throw that out there because I kind of know that there's a gap. And so I was just kind of thinking I'd prompt this discussion. And if perchance there was a county that had I don't know, windfall settlement from a large, you know, utility company, and there was some way of extracting funds to bridge this gap, I think that might be something worth thinking about. So
I think that's a great idea.
So subtle. Oh my God, I can't stand it.
And also, if you are an organization that has funds from somewhere that you can put to that, and you're applying to any of these other grants, definitely include that as match funding. Because match funding is not required for forest health, it's required for some of the others, but it always looks good to include match, and that definitely counts as match. As would in-kind work. We have someone's time going towards this, we have someone's equipment going towards this, and so on.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but CAL FIRE for the forest health grant, possibly for the prevention, but I'm pretty sure for the forest health grant, allows for the sale of timber products to be used as a cost share. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're just like doing my presentation for me. This is great.
Hey, sorry.
Don't stop. This is great. So for CAL FIRE forest health grants, yes, you can definitely sell timber products. That includes both timber or biomass chips going towards energy or whatever. The catch for forest health grants is that any revenue from the project has to get reinvested into the project. So if you're a person who has a bunch of burned trees and you want to salvage log those and use the revenue for anything else, then you probably would not want to pay with that with forest health dollars, because if you pay for it with forest health dollars, then you have to take the revenue and use it to treat more acres. But
just counterpoint, many of the work that we're going to do isn't going to actually generate a lot of revenue. And in fact, some of the harvests that we would be proposing would actually be net losses or gross losses. I always screw those up. But so once you pay all the crews and you get the people out there to do the work and all that kind of stuff, it's either a wash or maybe you lose a little bit of money. But the state's going to be looking at the gross revenue, right? Or did I have that backwards again? Whichever one is before the expenses, that is the one.
Yeah. So if you have
a cost share,
like you want to get a bunch of biomass out towards timber or a biochar or rabbit bedding or bioenergy or whatever it is, and it does not break even, but you wish you could do it, then you could use a grant to get from whatever the net loss is up to break even. And that's subsidizing haul costs. We can subsidize, like if you can get it out of the woods, but you can't get it to wherever you want to take it, and you need whatever amount of dollars an acre to make it break even and get it out of causing trouble in the woods and to a place where it can be, I don't know what the word here is, safer, more sustainable, then yes, you can use a forest health grant for that. Really good point.
And could you perchance use exemptions under the forest practice rules, specifically the forest fire prevention exemption that allows for up to 300 acres of clearing per property plus 500 acres of road building as an already established and approved method of meeting CEQA? Would that be possible?
Yeah. So CAL FIRE forest health grants, you need to meet CEQA for every dollar spent because it's public dollars. Then there's some stuff that wouldn't otherwise require CEQA that does. So yes, you can use forest practice exemptions like that one, like the fuel wood exemption. There's a whole bunch of them. Your Sonoma County is in CAL FIRE's Lake Napa unit. So Tim Holliday is the person to talk to about those. If your project includes doing a whole bunch of those, because they typically only last a year and are only 300 acres, if what you want to do is take 10 of them and staple them together, then there start being piecemealing concerns. So if you have that many to do, it might be more worth your while to get the grant to pay for doing a CAL VTP, which typically takes less than a year. So you can get the grant to pay for a CAL VTP, and then you'll get a bunch of surveys done, or maybe you already have them done, and that can include more acreage and include maintenance.
Thanks.
We really didn't pay him to be a plant in this. And we hope we're being respectful with these questions.
Yeah, can you come to all my presentations?
I know, Jason, that was great. It's super helpful to have those questions in mind, because we are running across a lot of different circumstances where, like Jason pointed out, that gap between the planning, also CEQA preparation. So having those understandings of those different exemptions is super helpful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and for folks who are currently working on applications, if you have a CEQA question, send me an email. We have a CEQA specialist who can talk with you about your particular situation.
Who's your CEQA specialist?
Her name is Andrea Williams, and she recently came to us from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. She's super experienced and is brand new, but I'm really stoked to have her on the team.
Thank you.
Andrea or Adriana?
Robin, I don't know if you're at the end of your presentation or if you have another slide.
I'm at the end. I have two more things to say on this slide, which is that there's a couple funding opportunities that are not open now, but I expect will be in the next year. One is that there is a particular set of money that the legislature appropriated for tribal and Native American forest health projects. So I don't know yet what agency that's going to come through, like what the process will be, but for anyone involved with tribal organizations, traditional ecological practices, and so on, like one, there's funding for that in the works, and two, don't wait, because it's all eligible for forest health funding right now. So just because there's funding specifically for that doesn't mean that it's not also eligible for the funding right now. And then there's forest health research for research focused projects, I think will be available in the fall as well.
So the question I was going to ask is everything that I know about forest health program, I know from Jason and Mary Maeda, who are two foresters in our area. But, you know, anytime we would talk about it in the past, we were like, oh gosh, like it would be great if we could access those funds, but the carbon accounting is really onerous, and it's just beyond us. And it's beyond, not only is it kind of beyond our ability to, in some ways, to do the calculations, it's also beyond our forest to be able to have the offset that you're looking for through planting or other restoration activities. Just kind of didn't seem like it fit our county, but I wonder if that's still the case, and if you could kind of illuminate some of the greenhouse gas accounting stuff for us.
Yeah, I have great news for you, which is that CAL FIRE does the carbon accounting now.
Ooh, nice.
Basically because everyone was like, this is too much, does not make sense. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone a bit better. So the way it works now is that when you apply, you submit the inputs to the carbon accounting, which is a shapefile of the project area, a description of the forest type and the species there, and a description of the prescription and what treatments you would do. And then CAL FIRE will do all the modeling. One, that was too complicated and it was like too big a lift, and two, people made a lot of errors in it. So now we just do that all exactly the same for every application.
Hallelujah. That is a huge lift off of a lot of grant applicants.
Yeah. And so yes, like shape files and forest descriptions are not nothing, but at least it's not extremely detailed math. The other thing is that much of our funding comes from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and California Climate Investments. So Forest Health Program overall across all of our grants has to be net carbon sequestration, but each individual grant does not have to be net carbon sequestration. So you could have a grant that that is primarily fuels reduction or prescribed burning that has kind of short-term emissions in order to have long-term carbon stability. So yes, it's great to have reforestation in order to have kind of very long-term major sequestration, but it's not a requirement for each individual grant. So if you have a project and you're thinking like, I really want to do this project, but I'm not sure it fits the carbon, then send me an email or give me a call, because usually the carbon, so how do I say this? All of the forest restoration work that we do, from fuels reduction to prescribed fire to all of these things, healthier forests store more carbon, and unhealthy forests are vulnerable to releasing carbon in fires. So usually carbon sequestration should not hold a project back from being eligible.
Okay, thank you. All that is really awesome to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Does anybody have any other questions? That was super helpful. Thank you, Robin. We also appreciate the impromptu sharing. I know that there are several people that should be on this call that aren't, but it is recorded, so we'll be able to share that on our website for folks. And so thank you for following up with that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sending out your contact information, and people can go directly to you for certain questions they have regarding the Forest Health Grant, which is due March 4th. So keep that, folks. Thank you.
I know some of our, oh, sorry to cut you off again.
Go ahead, Adriana.
Just, from our conversation last month, it sounded like some people are thinking about preparing an application for next year. So they're giving themselves plenty of time to think about it and prepare. I can see some head nodding, so that's good. So yeah, maybe we'll, go back to the drawing board, share this recording around, and then perhaps maybe in 6 months again, we'd like to have you back again to ask more detailed questions, or if that would be okay with you.
I'd love to come back. I think that the stuff that you all described in the beginning is some like, everywhere deserves work, and what you all are doing is some really like leading edge, really cool work. And so I would be happy to come back. Also, if you're looking at an application next year and you're kind of early stages, I would be happy to set up a call with you two, probably after our solicitation, because we're like very busy answering solicitation questions. But if you're thinking long-term, don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So with that, I'll get back onto our agenda, which is a little bit wonky today. But we did have two other folks to follow up. Adriana, did you have anything you wanted to share with the group?
Sure. Yeah. For my update, I wanted to say that Fire Safe Sonoma and in partnership with Goldridge and Safer West County, put in 3 applications to fire prevention earlier this month, and they are all for work in West County. One is a roads project that will treat up to 25 acres of primary evacuation roads in West County, like Occidental Road, Bohemian Highway, Grayton Road, let's see, Morelli, Harrison, Grade. And that, you know, that's an area that really needs a lot of care. So we're excited to potentially work with the county to get those roads treated. The second of the 3 proposals was for defensible space creation around the primarily the camps and the schools in the Bohemian Highway area. They have many structures, and they're you know, places we'd really like to harden and potentially use for shelter in place, maybe if we need to. So we just really want to prep those sites, and the water tanks and other infrastructure on them so that they're fire hard. Or I'm sorry, not home hardening, but just the defensible space work around those buildings. And then the third proposal is for capacity building. So that would be a lot of like education, workshops, things of that nature, and equipment purchase to help with ongoing maintenance of the defensible space that we create in that community through the purchase of 4 chippers. Each chipper would be housed by a local fire department. So I believe that's Occidental Fire, Monterey Fire, Forestville, which is now Sonoma County Fire, and Goldridge Fire on behalf of Camp Meeker. So that's something we're really excited about. Also rolled into that proposal is home defensible space incentives, which would be 1,000 acres per home to give them the lift that they need. We're focusing on low income households to just, yeah, give them a starting point to create their defensible space. We just estimate that it's only like a 70%, maybe even 50% of the total cost, but that's something to get people started. And that incentive would be for, I believe it was 400 homes in the West County area. So we have our fingers crossed that this will get funded. We presented something really similar last year as one proposal and didn't get funded, like many other Sonoma County proposals didn't. We're hoping that now that we've broken it up into smaller pieces, at least 1 or 2 will get funded. That's my update.
Great. And finally, for updates, Kim, actually, Anis, if you would like to share what the tell us.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks to the late arrival.
Yes, yeah, thank you for having me. So similarly, over on the Central Maui side, we also put in a proposal to CAL FIRE through Fire Safe Sonoma with Jason has done some great work helping us with that. So the Sonoma RCD. And we were looking at kind of an area that we put in for last year, but we've scaled the grant down. So we're doing the Diamond Mountain area in the Mark West area, and we're doing a planning grant to try to get the Cal VGP, get the CEQA through that, as well as do planning to try to build out the pods, the work delineation areas, and also do some shaded fuel breaks in the area for better management. So we also have our fingers crossed there. We'll wait to hear back.
That's great. Thank you for that. All right. And last but not least, I would like to just report out on what the Ag and Open Spaces Vegetation Management Grant Program. The deadline was back in January 23rd. We received 40 different proposals worth asking for $7 million. We have about $2 to $4 million to spend this year. And so our selection committee is going through those proposals and evaluating them based on the criteria that we set forth in the RFP. And so we hope to have a recommendation to the board. That's the deadline for us to submit a board report is March 2nd. And then the board makes its determination and whether to follow our recommendations on April 19th. So that kind of gives you a sense of where we are in the process. The grant agreements would be developed after the board of supervisors makes its determination. And then so we would hope to have all grants signed, sealed, and delivered by the end of April. That's the basic timeline that we're talking about right now. But I was really encouraged with the number of different grants that we received. We had a few repeats from last session in 2021, but still they represented the large landscape scale treatments that we're hoping to support. So really encouraged and just always inspired by the type of projects that people were promoting. So we hope we can select some winners and get them funded as quickly as possible. All right. With that, I'd like to move on to, I'm going to move on to the presentation that Adriana had prepared for us. It is focusing on the Tannery Creek in-stream large wood recruitment and forest management project. So Adriana?
Okay, well, before I do that, I just wanted to, just while we have some folks on the line, I wanted to take a quick poll about our riparian management tour that I'm planning for either this month or next month. And I have 2 potential dates, and I just wanted to do a poll from the group. I wonder if I can actually create a poll right now. We have 2 dates. One is Saturday, February 26th. Let me see if I can actually do this on the Zoom. Saturday, February 26th, which is next Saturday, really coming up quick. And then the second one is Sunday, March 13th. And these are touring sites in Glen Ellen, looking at riparian forest management, talking about the permitting and restoration management objectives and how to work around all the different complexities of the riparian rules and ecology. So let me see.
Do you know roughly what times those would be?
Oh, yes. We're thinking 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., just kind of middle of the day, 4 hours. We'll be seeing 3 sites. And so we want to give ourselves at least 4 hours to go from site to site. And I think we'll be caravanning in individual cars for COVID reasons. Okay, here we go. I think this will work. Do you guys see a poll now? Great. So shoot, you know what? I made it either or. So you're gonna have to, darn it. I kind of would like you to choose both that work for you. Maybe, I'm not sure if this is gonna work. I don't know if I can, I don't think I can like edit it now that it's out there. But we'll just see what happens.
You can just raise, people can raise their hands, sweetie.
Yeah, that would work too. Let's see. I'll just let the poll finish and then we can see if this is, there's a better way to do
old
this.
School, right, Dee?
This is literally what I did when I sent out a survey earlier too. Yeah. I let people only choose one. So I'm sorry to do the same mistake. But it looks like, let's see, has everyone voted? Yes. Anyone who hasn't? Judy, have you? Oh, you're on mute. And okay, sorry, Judy, I couldn't catch what you're saying because you're on mute. Still muted. Sorry. But you can use the chat if that's better. And I'm just going to say,
no, I'm not going to attend the meetings, so I'm not voting.
Got it. Okay. Sorry about that. So it looks like March 13th works for 7 of the 8 and February 26th works for 1 of the 8 of us. Can I just take a verbal response? Is Sunday, March 13th better for those who would like to attend? Yes. Okay, I'm so sorry, Kim. That's the date that he can't make. So, okay.
I'm a minor character in all of this action. So.
Not at all. No, I'm glad that Leslie can sub for you. Because one of our sites is going to be Calabasas Creek Preserve, which is really awesome. So, okay, we'll move ahead with March 13th and I'll start advertising that soon. And I won't be there but I'm really excited for you guys to have a chance to get together and talk about this super important issue. And Robin, I don't know where you are, but you're welcome to come to any of our tours if they sound interesting to you. So, and yeah, I'll put all the event information on our website, so it's easy to find. Okay, and now I have a PowerPoint. I'm sorry I sound so disorganized today, but like I have a PowerPoint that I really wanted to show my speaker notes. Maybe can I just show you guys? Does anyone know how to do this? I did it last week and it worked fine on a different computer, but it's not working on my laptop. So let me share my thing. And if anyone knows how to present with the speaker notes, that would be awesome. Any ideas?
You've got them.
Yeah, I just like, I didn't want you guys to be able to see them.
Oh, just go to.
Well, they're very tiny. They're very tiny, you know.
I don't know if there's going to be a way.
Adriana, just go to the bottom of your screen. There's a little symbol on the far right. There's notes. Yeah, that one. Just hit that and you'll go with that. That'll be full screen.
It'll go full screen, but now I don't get to.
Oh, yeah. Then you won't have
your screen, but see what we can't see. I don't think you're going to be able to do that.
That's the issue. So I'm just going to use my memory then, and we'll just go from here. Actually, oh, wait a minute. Is it at the bottom? What's that? Nope, that's captions. Oh, sorry, guys.
That's good.
You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to go to my other computer. And while I'm doing that, would you guys like to talk amongst yourselves about grants or anything else?
Yeah,
is
we
that
already
okay?
covered grants. So how about, let me see. So we have about 40 minutes. So you think you can do a presentation in 20. We have a discussion about, this is something that Dee proposed to our steering committee. I think it's a great idea, is to see if we have like 3 top strategic goals for 2022 related to forest management. And that could be your organization, that could be county-wide. I think we just wanted to have kind of an open discussion about this being the front of the year. What are some of the key things for you and your organization or you personally to try to accomplish this year? So if we want to start, I mean, you can think about it. If anybody wants to raise a hand or just volunteer, we can maybe spend about 20 minutes on that discussion and then turn the presentation over to Adriana.
Well, I'll start, and I just want to say that Taking Action for Living Systems this year is really wanting to get our convening process underway so that we can help everybody that is doing the projects that we've been describing today, but to have them be more connected, more supported, on a wider, larger scale and financed with more than the grants can do. We know the grants are really one-time grants or maybe a little bit more, but we need to be having funds and organize a structure so that our forests, that we can support our forests for the very, very long, I always call it the 500-year plain. And so that's what I want Taking Action for Living Systems to accomplish this year and include decision makers from banking systems, from the insurance industry, from PG&E, so that the conversation is comprehensive. So that's our goal.
Next, I guess. So, you know, I'm wearing lots of different hats these days, and it's mostly with Ag and Open Space and the Veg Management Program. And so I'll speak with just that, with this great vision that we're trying to create. And I think it's certainly in line. Yeah, and that's one of the things I've loved about this job is that this new position really allows me to touch base with landowners and organizations to support them, and getting a real key figure and understanding about what are the barriers, those gaps that Jason brought up earlier, trying to resolve some of those issues. Even with this time-limited funding, we can do so much, and trying to figure out the best way to leverage it. And I really appreciate what Robin was suggesting, is that matching funds with CAL FIRE, that's exactly what the grants that we're currently able to provide some of these projects throughout the county is capable of doing. It's able to fill those gaps. And I had one evaluation member say, if we could just support nothing but Cal VTPs, it would be a great investment. And I definitely share that sentiment, is that we are at a point where we have great projects, but they're not CEQA compliant. We have projects that are just kind of getting rolling, but they need support in some ways that a single grant can provide them. So, and Jason is way overmatched. So that my vision is really to be able to figure out a way in which we can start to connect the dots. And I think we're starting to see that when we talk about the Coast, Sonoma Coast Collaborative. The Mark West region is starting to create some really great energy. There's other projects down at the Sonoma Valley Collaborative. Those are starting to show these initiatives between prescribed fires and shaded fuel breaks and evacuation routes. Those are things that are really necessary as a response to these wildfires that have really hit us hard since 2017. So I think those are the things I really like to see the potential for this year.
I would like to say, in my meeting with with Robin, she did say that Cal VTPs and prescribed fires are good buzzwords right now for those forest health grants, because I talked to her specifically about the Cal VTP, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now, that we can apply in various, ways to various, funding sources, which is pretty exciting.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, are those the strategic goals for 2022? Anybody else want to share?
I guess I could share. Oh no, Jason, did you want to go?
It's okay. I was kind of going to say you're ready for your presentation, but I guess just chiming in on the theme that you're already getting at. I really think that one of the things we need to figure out is, now that we sort of have some community groups starting, working to solidify that, and really recognizing that a big part of the problem requires sort of community building and outreach, which isn't really in the wheelhouse of a forester, but that's what we need to do. And once we create these pods, as the TALS group is sort of kind of working on, I really think that the next step is, outside of even a VTP, I think the idea is to create a management plan, right? And so to be able to discuss, here's our planning area. Here are all the people who live in our planning area. Here are feasible access routes to be able to do work. Here is a high priority and a high, medium, low for on the ground implementation work, and developing units based off of what is actually feasible to do work. Where is there access, and also where should we be doing it? Should we be doing 100-foot fuel breaks at the bottom of a gorge near a water course? Maybe not as good of a spot as up on top of the ridge over there that has an old ranch road, and figure that out. And then also to be able to describe, okay, so let's say that the end goal is to put prescribed fire on the ground. I think that people need to know whenever you do any sort of action or inaction, honestly, whenever you do anything, right? There's a long-term change that occurs on the ground. And so just like making sure that people know, if I'm going to put fire on this, you know, chamise hill, if I put fire on chamise in a time period earlier than 5 years or so, I'm going to have grass in 10 years. And like me, I'm okay with that, right? But like maybe there are other values or goals or things that people have, like that's the best foraging habitat for deer or something like that. And so I just think having those conversations and getting people to think about, okay, like let's weigh fire preparedness and ease of management versus what our other goals might be. So aesthetics, recreation, water quality, wildlife habitat, and just kind of like get that out there. And I'm not even saying that that needs to meet all the other sequel related stuff, because I think that like developing that base level plan is the first step. Then we go and we do a VTP or we do something to say like, okay, well, these are the threatened or endangered species and things that are in your project area that you've identified. And now that we know where our high level projects are, we know that, oh gosh, we have this rare plant that hit on our very important fuel break ridge. So what are we going to do? And we can actually talk about mitigating it instead of talking about avoiding it. Because if we make the VTP before we know where we're doing work, and then we run into this problem and we just said, we'll avoid it, easy, right? Check that box. But oops, we don't want to avoid it. We want to mitigate the problem, right? So it's sort of this, you know, you say planning, and I think people just lump that together, but like there's kind of two phases to it. There's planning and then there's environmental compliance. So,
yeah. Go ahead, Judy.
So Jason, I understand what you're saying. And my question is, if you were looking at a CalVTP, wouldn't the PSA address a lot of those things that you just brought up?
Yeah, but you need to know what the plan is. And I'm not saying, I don't want this to be a 4-month planning process. I want this to be like a real hand wavy, what do we want? Who's on board? What's possible? What's feasible? I want this to be something that's like done pretty early. And especially for people who already know what they want and are like, yeah, come on, let's get this going. That's one thing. We have very different communities in Sonoma County, and we have some people who are going to argue, don't cut any of my chaparral, right? Like, don't touch my manzanita, period. And so like, we just need to have, for some groups, we're going to need to have some more conversations about like, okay, we can have manzanita, but maybe we shouldn't have it in our strategic fire access or fuel break stuff or whatever. So every community is going to be different in terms of the level of hand holding that they need. Frankly, I think that people in your area are like ready to go, you know?
I didn't know what
they're ready to go. Like, yeah, you're ready to go.
Oh,
you're in like people in the, that's like, you all have ranching backgrounds and have a general understanding of how things change. And it's a bit different than if you were trying to do something in Mark West, where you just have a large, you know, long-term ecological focused, watershed health focused. That's sort of how that community formed. So you might have a different conversation than the ranch folk. But I still think it's important that people know what the project is, where are the areas that we want to do what first, then this, what's our return interval, what's that look like. So to make the PSA, you can say, this is unit A, this is unit B. Unit A has these problems, and I've identified them now. So I don't have to just say like, oh yeah, we'll do prescribed fire out there. Here's my huge planning area. Yeah, we're going to do mastication. And so I guess anytime we ever run up against the Sonoma tree vole, we'll just like, I don't know, avoid it, because that's the easy box. So anyway, that's like, hopefully that's not more confusing than.
Well, no, I think Jason, you're bringing up a really good point of our need to communicate with all sectors of the region. Judy's area may be ready, but the people that live next to her think differently about the chaparral. Not that that's related, because you probably don't have much. Anyway, I'm just saying that there are large interest groups that we need to have in regular conversation so we can learn from each other, and that we aren't going to end up fighting with each other because we weren't communicating and collaborating. And I think that's the point that I'm getting from what you're suggesting, Jason, is that there needs to be a forum for the decisions that we make, and then the outcomes, and then adapt, and change with what we learn. And it doesn't happen very often. It only happens sometimes when you have a hearing or a big decision. No, it has to be ongoing relationships and forums.
Yeah, and the other thing too is just that this can't appear to be the government coming in and telling people what they're going to do.
That's right.
On this area, it has to be something that has, people with real trust, right? So like, if you've lived in the neighborhood for 30 years, you've got a whole lot more weight than I do.
No,
where
I disagree. If you just came in, but you have a wealth of information coming in with you that the local people didn't know about. So I do not agree with that assessment. I
lived in Humboldt and Mendocino County for 10 years, and I'll tell you, you'll get a shotgun put in your face if you start telling people what to do, right?
Well, you don't tell people what to do, you open a conversation, Jason. That's what I'm suggesting.
All right.
I know, but I'm just saying
to Robin. I'm going to be the facilitator here. I'm going to go to Robin next, and then Judy, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm not local. I don't know the individual places, but I can say that I have heard of other places in the state having similar conversations about big picture planning and pods and fire sheds. So Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions and the Tuolumne River Trust have kind of just finished a big project like this. So if you find it helpful to talk to others who are building similar wheels, then I'd suggest them.
Where did you say that was, Stanislaus?
Can you put that in the chat so we can refer to it? Thank you.
Yeah, it did. And there's plenty of places, but I happened to be on a site visit yesterday with people talking about similar things. So put that organization in the chat.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Judy, what would you like to say?
Yeah, well, first I would agree with Dee. I mean, I think you need to bring, I think the ranching families, we have the multi-generational ranching families here who we turn to because they've been managing these lands long before we got here. And yet you have people like Jason or people like other, foresters and experts in land management and fire resiliency and all that come in, and people want to hear, they just want to be respected. And I know it seems like a large area. We're looking at the Sonoma Coast Collaborative. We're looking at 91,000 acres from the coast going in about 8 miles. And it seems huge, and it is, but the subdivided ranches, we all know each other. The people who own the large land holdings, like the Richardsons and other people up the coast, we know them because we are a community and we work with them. But we still, and I think that there's a way for bringing in the historical knowledge and blending that with the new technology that's coming up. And I think that's what we're kind of looking at here is how do we use the valuable resources we have with our old-time ranching families and the new stuff that's coming in, because they want to learn too. And we're looking for a way of working together. And this conversation that we've had today, I mean, unfortunately, we've had COVID, restrictions, but this is the first time we haven't had an annual forest stewardship workshop. And I would love to bring this conversation up as part of what we have done in the past by bringing in people and, like Jason, the things that you've been talking about, and And, you know, you've come and you've spoken to people in our community, and they really heard what you were saying. And I think that this is a good direction, I feel, for us as an organization to go up, you know, here on the coast. And I'd like to call on all of you again later and see how we can make this happen.
Sounds great. All right. Thank you, folks. I really appreciate your feedback on all of that. I think Adriana is ready to take over and give a presentation on her work on using large woody debris. Go ahead, Adriana.
Okay, that was awesome. I'm really glad we could make time for that. And I think this is going to work. So let's see. And there we go. All right. Okay, so this is a presentation on the Tannery Creek in-stream largewood recruitment and forest management project. Last month, I heard some folks say they were interested in learning more about stream wood or wood debris in streams. And I just thought this is a presentation I actually made for the California Association of RCDs conference that they had online this year. And so I am happy to recycle it for you all. I'll try to keep it relevant to this group. I think it is. I mean, some of you are probably already familiar with large wood projects, but this presentation has a little bit of a twist in that it also contributed to a forest management plan on the property where the project was done. And Jason, I'm really glad that you're here because it was a project that you worked on. So you can help clarify any of the details that I might miss. So you know who I am. I'll skip over that. The project site, Jason is laughing because, you know, you have to introduce yourself when it's to a state association. So anyway, here's the project site. We're in Bodega, and so the project site is very close to the town of Bodega. The watershed that we're working within is this green watershed. It's the Salmon Creek watershed. It's not actually a tributary to the Russian River. It's just south of the Russian River. So it's an independent coastal watershed. And the sub watershed that the project takes place in is called the Tannery Creek watershed. The Tannery Creek watershed is one of 6 major tributaries to Salmon Creek, coastal watershed that once supported thriving salmonid populations like much of our coast. However, land use practices in the watershed have contributed to impaired riparian habitat conditions, like many. Historically, Tannery Creek, like many redwood streams, was heavily impacted by upland logging. Loggers used the Tannery stream bed as a haul road, which caused the channel to become more straight, deep, and wide, and reduced its complexity and meandering path. Through the 1980s, channel clearing was a common way to reduce flood risk and was practiced widely, even in a location like Tannery Creek, where it wasn't really necessary. It was done more as a matter of course. Salmon populations, which once were thriving, began to crash in the 1980s, and in 1996, the last naturally propagated coho were seen in the watershed. In response to this crisis, the Russian River Coho Captive Broodstock Program began planting adult coho salmon from adjacent watersheds into the Salmon Creek estuary. And this annual tradition continues, and today adult and juvenile coho salmon can be found in both our winter spawning surveys and snorkel surveys, which is great news, but they need help. So the purpose of this project was to use large wood material, these redwood and Douglas fir logs, to increase these resources for salmonids. We wanted the logs to increase pool count and pool depth, provide shelter and vegetative cover over the water, provide high flow refugia, which is also called backwater habitat, slower areas that small salmon can take refuge in during high flow events so that they're not swept out and downstream or flooded up onto the channel, onto the banks. We wanted these large wood pieces to add channel complexity to the stream and ultimately to sort sediment on the channel bed to improve spawning gravel. The purpose of the project was also to benefit the landowner's forest management goals. This 1,000-acre ranch in Bodega is overgrown like many of our coastal forests. And so we were able to do a selection harvest of low quality mature redwoods to thin a really dense redwood stand on the property. So the history of restoration in Tannery Creek precedes this project, which was done in 2019. Way back in 2011, the RCD installed 5 sites, large wood sites along Key Reach, kind of in the upper portion of the creek. And then in 2014, they expanded that to 18 sites, or an additional 18 sites. And the effectiveness of this project was that in the summer after the project was conducted, 272 juvenile coho salmon were found in a snorkel survey, more than in any other tributary in the watershed, which was a really good sign that the pools were providing refuge to those baby salmon in the summer dry spells. In 2019, this project installed 42 sites downstream of the past projects. And really all this is thanks to the enthusiastic participation of the local landowners and managers who you see in the bottom corner there, who have been just really awesome participants. The funding for this program for this project came from California Fish and Wildlife's Fisheries Restoration Grant Program, FRGP. This is a program that still is emphasizing the value of large wood projects. That has not gone out of style. So if this is a project that you're interested in, you can still apply for funding for such a thing. I have to say that because funding programs do shift their focus over time, but this is still a priority of theirs. And what the project does is it addresses NOAA's, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's, recovery plan goals for coho salmon. The goal is to promote the increased habitat complexity of the in-stream habitat through increasing large wood frequency to 6 key pieces per 100 meters in target tributaries. And that's really because those key pieces, those large pieces of wood, provide all those benefits that I mentioned before in terms of increasing cover, pool depth, sorting spawning gravel, and all of that. And you can imagine too that back in the day, this was just really common that where creeks had trees growing along them, the trees would die and fall into the creek. And it was just a natural part of creek hydrology that water interacts with wood. So we're, after years of actually removing wood from streams, we're trying to put it back in now. In 2018, just 2 key pieces of large wood existed in the entire project reach. And now, as of 2019, the project has installed 43 key pieces and has met and exceeded the objective of 6 key pieces per 100 meters. And those key pieces are defined as a piece of wood that's twice the average bankful width and length, and at least 18 inches in diameter, and at least 2.5 cubic meters in size. So for this channel, that meant these redwood logs were about 50 feet long. And I think the 18 inches at the small end, but they were really more averaging like closer to 20, 25 inches in diameter. We couldn't have done this project without our awesome engineers and contractors. So our team included Streamline Engineering and Blanco Watershed Management. We've worked on numerous projects with Streamline Engineering. The principal's name is Eric Ossenson. He's a one-man show. Eric is just amazing. He does all kinds of stream work with us, including a lot of these large wood projects, off-channel high flow refugia projects, that backwater kind of thing I was mentioning before, and watershed assessments and erosion control. He's really familiar with our district's watersheds and a lot of watersheds of the county and the fish populations. So he's got a real passion for conservation. And then Blanco has been just a total dream partner because they're foresters who also have experience in this stream restoration work. It's kind of unique, and they sort of see stream restoration as part science and part art, and they're very much into blending the two. And you'll see the skillfulness of their work later when I show you a little video of them installing this project. So let's see. Here is a map of this is actually in red. This is the parcel outline of the 1,000-acre ranch. And down here is the project reach in Tannery Creek. You can see each of these yellow lines is an access point where they punched into the riparian forest to install these large wood pieces. Following this yellow access road all the way up to our redwood source, let's see. So the redwood source is so very far away from the project site because we had to observe some rules around wildlife habitat. So you can see these purple circles are spotted owl activity centers that had been spotted at one point in the last, gosh, I think like 30 or so years. We did not confirm that these were actually active at this time, but we just did our due diligence to see were there any activity centers located in the area. Yes, there were. So we had to make sure we weren't disturbing them under this project. And that's because, and Jason, you can pop in here too, but we were lucky enough to be able to do this harvest for this project without any kind of harvesting permit, because the wood that we're harvesting isn't being used for commercial purposes. It's staying on site. It's not going anywhere. So we didn't have to do an entire timber harvest plan, which could have meant more restrictions, more rules about what we were doing. Instead, we just really had to comply with CEQA. So we needed to look for any archaeological sites, which we did not find. We had to look for any sensitive wildlife habitat centers, which were just the owl habitats. And we had to locate and avoid any endangered species of plants, which we did find. I think that's coming up in one of my future slides, but yeah, we had a couple instances of endangered plants that we needed to avoid. But anyway, that explains why our harvest site is so very far away from our project site. And so here, I mentioned before that there's a forest management plan on this property. Here is the map of the management units from this forest properties management plan. This was developed by Jason Wells. So Jason, feel free to embellish what I'm about to say. The project, like I said, the harvesting happened, let's see. Let me just say there's 7 management units. And in the upper right, this green unit is the one where we were harvesting from. I'm gonna overlay the redwood source polygon lightly. You can see it there. And then our project was happening down here. And Unit D's prescription is to remove conifer trees under 16 inches at diameter at breast height, and all snags under 16 inches diameter breast height. Thin hardwood clumps to the thriftiest 2 to 3 stems per clump. Within sun and oak death mortality pockets, remove all affected trees and snags, replant with desired species, and treat residual overstory as necessary to ensure survival. So how does this in-stream project meet the goals that are outlined in this management unit? I'm going to go on to the next one. And like I said, Jason, feel free to make any comments, but here we have Chris Blanco and his employee JJ surveying the stand. You can see that the redwood stands we harvested from was mixed age with really old growth on the left. You can see how huge this tree is. And then younger generation on the right growing in a fairy ring. Active management of the woods on this 1,000-acre ranch has been really minimal. And as a result, dense regrowth like this is common. We targeted trees that were growing in clumps and chose trees that were the large dimensions that we needed for them to be a key piece, according to Fish and Wildlife, about 50 feet long and 18 inches in diameter at least. But still, we wanted them to still not be choice logs that might go to the mill. This meant that Chris chose logs that had imperfections, like a slight bend in the trunk or other marring. It isn't really a typical thinning project by any means because the trees we harvested were so large, but still, we wanted to reduce the number of trees per acre. And we think that this project did work towards that goal. And then I'll just say, actually, Jason, do you want to say anything else about that? No, you're all good. Okay. And then another thing that's worth mentioning is that we reopened some old logging roads. So you can see that's what the cat is on right now, which can be used again for future harvests. Chris and Ken did some light grading on the old road. They put in some water bars to disperse any runoff. And after they were done, they went in and seeded and mulched after the harvest was complete to reduce any surface erosion. Here's just another picture of the tree harvest. This tree was felled uphill, and that again is the old logging road that was used for access. Kind of cool. It was really fun being out there with these guys, I have to say. Total highlight of my 2019. And after the harvest, the trees were loaded at a staging area, and the trees, yeah, they were loaded at a staging area, and they were taken down to the project site. Along the road, we found a few endangered species. Like I said, this is a native tarweed that was found here. You can see the botanist has marked up this image with her notes about where the plant is. So we ended up putting some construction fence along the road here just to remind the loggers not to drive off the road and into this area. Ironically, tarweed is a plant that really likes disturbance. So if we had run on it, it probably would have been fine and happy, but we had to follow the rules. And then once the logs had been staged by the creek, it was ready to get started. This is not a picture of our work site at all, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like to have logs staged. Okay, so here's our plan and our project design. And like I said, the project installed about 43 logs. That we had 33 redwood and 9 Douglas fir. And we also had 3 root wads, which are really great for fish habitat. When you put them in the water, they have a bunch of roots sticking out, and they're just great complex hiding places for them. These structures were designed in place to scour pools, provide cover, sort spawning gravel, all like I mentioned before. And in some places also redirect flows away from eroding banks. So let's see what I want to point out here. Just basically each of these red lines is log. So here's one, here's another. You can also see an important design element to point out is that these structures for the most part are actually dynamic. They're not like set in place. They're able to kind of float and rise up and down with floodwaters. That's something that Fish and Wildlife really wanted to see more of, because they felt like the large wood structures that were fully anchored into the channel with boulders or heavy hardware, they were good in many ways, but they were so static that they weren't providing that dynamic action that they really wanted to see in these projects that's more true to real life. So what that means here is you can kind of see it here. There's a tree here that's just, the only thing that's keeping it there is that it's threaded between 2 live trees. So these 2 green dots are live trees. And I will show you what that looks like in a minute. So a lot of them are just threaded either between 2 live trees on the same bank, or maybe there's a tree on one bank and then a tree on another side of the bank that they're able to kind of thread between to keep the log in place. Here's an image that shows that. So here's 2 live trees, really pretty small. I think these are alders. And they're everything that this log needs to make sure it doesn't wash downstream. No hardware, just that. So now I'm going to show you a quick, let's see how we're doing on time.
We're doing fine. It's about
doing fine.
Yeah, we have
okay,
about
good.
3 minutes. And I think if people need to step off right at 12, go ahead and go do that. But fire away.
Okay, great. So this is a really short video. But yeah, it's a great one to see just the artfulness of these guys working. So here we go. You can see they're about to come into the creek with the log. Here we go. Okay, so here we go, and you'll see how they kind of do this fine adjustment to get the log just where they want it. They put a chain around the trunk, and then they put the chain on the bucket, and they just gently lift and lower. the log into place. And it's just really neat to see how they're positioning it so that not only is the log threaded through those live trees like they want it, but the head of the log that's in the creek is pointed right in the place where they want it to, so that it can exaggerate that existing pool that's there, widen it and deepen it. It's kind of, like I said, part science, part art. They're really finessing it to make sure it looks just the way they want it to. And so that's, we've got our contractors on site with Blenco employees, but I think our engineer is also there somewhere. I saw him earlier. And so he's making sure everything is right to the plans. And let's see. I think there was another one I wanted to show you around minute 440. Here we go. Yeah, this one's a cool one because you can see the log is kind of being positioned between the upper bank and like sort of like a like sandbar that has become part of the bank. It's actually like, this is an off channel that I think was created through flooding, but they're going to try and get it to become even deeper and more exaggerated by putting the log in it. So when the water flows downstream here, it'll back up into this backwater area. And then eventually that'll kind of create extra complexity along the line of the creek that fish can use in high flows. So again, just really neat to see them do what they do. This is on YouTube if you'd like to watch more. I'll put the link into the chat later. Let's see, let me get back to this. So here we go. I think I have to reset this. Okay, so project implementation. Here we go. I just wanted to show you some of the photo. This is another picture of anchoring where they've, in some cases, they needed to anchor the ends of the logs in the stream bed. So this is called a soil anchor, I believe. They're putting the gravel of the stream bed on top of the ends of the logs to keep them in place if they didn't have good enough live tree anchors. And the yellow line is stream flow direction. And so here you can also see, here's another kind of really light natural anchoring technique where they used one live tree and then also the stream bank itself to hold the wood log in place. And here's another one where it's like threaded through some live trees and then sort of like pushed up against to the creek bank. This is just kind of an interesting one showing two logs interlaced. And let's see, lastly, project evaluation monitoring. In terms of how the project has been performing since fall of 2019, we haven't had enough rain to really see these structures interact with high flows. So we don't know how they might move in a high flow yet. It hasn't happened yet. But even so, we've seen some changes, one of which is that our large wood structures have started to rack up small wood, which is another objective. So all of these small branches and twigs have been racked up on our large wood piece, which is great habitat for insects and lots of critters who can fall into the water and become food for salmon. It's also cover and shade on the water. And here's another example of that large wood recruitment. Really cool to see that happening. We have some metal recruitment. It's an old cattle fence that's just has been there historically. But I also wanted to share with you our pool monitoring count. Sorry, this is off a little bit, but in 2019, when we started the project, we had 44 pools in the project reach. And the next year, we nearly doubled the number of pools, which is awesome to see. 2021, we didn't have that much rain, so the pools stayed the same, but still we consider it a success in terms of how the wood is interacting with the water and flows when we do get rain. And lastly, we're also keeping an eye out for redwood seedlings that were planted along the riparian corridor as part of our revegetation post-construction. If we're lucky, these seedlings will grow into mature redwoods that will shade the creek while they're alive and plug the creek when it's their time to fall down. thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any questions about large-wood projects, feel free to ask me, or I can direct you to a number of other partners who have done these kinds of projects in the past. They're really cool. And yeah, I hope to see more of them out there. So let me bring that down and I will stop sharing. Okay.
That's fantastic. That was really interesting. Thanks very much, Adriana, for sharing that with us. And it's just, it's so great to see these types of projects being implemented on over time, and then getting back to see what the results are. So we really appreciate you being able to share that with us. And hopefully we can do a field visit. We did a field visit out to Willow Creek several years ago and saw that type of work. And so it'd be really great to see another site and reintroduce the concept to folks who haven't been exposed to it, as well as the importance of it as far as salmon habitat. So that's huge. So thanks for your work as well, Jason, on that project. And it is 12:04. That's not bad. So thank you guys for participating in today's meeting. Our next meeting is March 17th from 10 to 12. We have a presentation by Sashi Sabaranthan, who I just butchered your name, but I apologize. She works for University of California Cooperative, and she's going to share with us some of the work that she's doing in vegetation management. So with that, I bid you all adieu. Thanks for participating, all of you, and hopefully we'll see you next month. All right, thanks.
Thank you. And I dropped a link to the video in case you want to watch more construction in Tannery Creek. And also one more date to put on there is our March 13th riparian projects tour. But thank you so much, Kim, for that great close. And I hope everyone has a good rest of their week.
All right. Sounds good. See you, folks.
Bye.